our starting list of cards. We've got ace, 2, 3, 4 of spades. And after we shuffle it, I would expect to see the order inside of there randomized. So something like 3, 4, ace, 2. So let's do a little bit of research into figuring out exactly how we're going to shuffle this list. Now, the Go standard library unfortunately does not have any built-in function to automatically shuffle a slice or shuffle an array, shuffle a slice, a list for us. So instead, we're going to have to put together our own custom logic to manually shuffle all the elements inside of here. And so here's the logic we're going to apply. We're going to loop through our entire slice of cards one time. Then for each card or each index inside of that slice, we are going to generate a random number between 0 and the maximum length of the card slice. We'll then take the current card that we're looking at and swap it with the card that is present at the random number inside that slice. So if we were to apply this logic to this little example right here, we would say that the very first time we iterate through this list of cards, we would be looking at the ace of spades. We would then generate a number between 0 and 3, which represents the last card over here. And then whatever the random number that is, we will swap the card at that index with the first card inside the slice. So for example, if we generated the number 3, we would take the ace of spades, we would throw it at the very end of the slice, we would take the 4 of spades and put it at the very start. So something like that. Then we would move on to the next card inside the slice, so the 2 of spades. So again, we would generate a random number. Maybe this time it is 0. We would then swap this card with the card at index of 0. And then we repeat that process for the entire length of the slice. Okay, so I think that definitely makes sense. And that will be, maybe not the best shuffling in the world, but it definitely will randomize the order of cards in here. So we need to now figure out exactly how we're going to actually implement this. So I think that the real challenge here is figuring out how we generate a random number between 0 and the entire length of the card slice. So let's check out the standard library documentation again. Remember that you can get to this page by going to golang.org and then clicking the packages button at the top. Now inside of here, we're going to scroll on down to the math package. And so right here, here's math. Now, one of these sub-packages inside of math is the rand package, which we can use to generate random numbers. So let's look at the documentation around that. Inside the rand package, find the index section, and we're looking for a function called int n right here. So here's int n. Essentially, we can call the int n function with some integer of our own. The int n function will then generate a number between 0 and the number that we pass in. And this is always going to be an integer, which means we can use it directly on the slice that we are trying to make use of. Because remember, we need an integer to access actual elements inside of there. So I think that we really need to do is basically call this function right here and use it to sort or shuffle our slice. So let's give this a shot. I'm going to change back over to my code editor, and down at the bottom of the deck.go file, we'll create a new function called shuffle. Now, as usual, we need to think about the function signature here. I think that it makes a lot of sense to want to say that we want to do something like, say, cards.shuffle, and then expect this cards slice right here to be randomized. So I think that we need to set up shuffle with a receiver of a deck. So we'll say d deck, like so. Now, I don't think that this function is going to need to accept any other arguments, and I also don't think that we need to have any return value from it. We're basically just going to take the deck that we're working on, randomize the order inside of it, and that's it. Nothing else to return. Okay, so let's give this a shot. We're going to first start off by writing out our for loop. So we're going to say for index in range of D, the deck. Now you'll notice that this time we said only index, and we did not actually get access to the card inside of here. So we do not need to always get a reference to the element that we are iterating over. In this case, we really just care about the index, and I'll show you why in just a second. Now that we've seen the word index right here, by the way, we're going to follow convention a little bit more closely, and we'll abbreviate this to be simply I. And just remember, I is essentially the index of the card that we're walking through at this point. So now inside the loop, we're going to first generate our random number. So we'll say new position. And as usual, remember, this variable name is really longer than we would like it to be by convention, but we're going to write these variable names out long form right now, just to make sure that it's really clear what we're doing. So we're going to say the new position is going to be our int n function inside of the rand library. So we'll say rand.int n. And we want to generate a number between 0 and the length of the slice minus 1. So we'll say length of the slice minus 1, like so. So this right here is something we have not done before. This is how we get the length of a slice. Len is short for length, and we can pass any old slice in there and it will return an integer that reflects the actual length of the slice. So now this call right here in total will generate a random number between 0 and 1 minus or 1 less than the length of the slice. So now we can do our exchange logic, or the logic to kind of swap two elements inside of our deck. And so this is where we're going to use another kind of interesting piece of syntax. So bear with me here. Let's write out the code for it, and we'll talk about exactly what it's doing. We're going to say inside of our deck at index of I, and then a comma, and then inside of our deck at the index of new position. And these two values right here are going to come from inside the deck at new position and inside of the deck at I. So this is a really fancy one-line swap right here. So we're using this expression to swap the elements at both I and new position inside of our slice. So note that we've got a comma between both sides, or each references to the deck. So we're essentially saying, take whatever is at new position and assign it to I. And then take whatever's at I and assign it to new position. So that's pretty much it. So this iterates through all the elements inside of our slice, generate a random number, and then swap the elements. So I think that we're ready to do a little test with this. Now I'm going to tell you right now, before we test it out, the code that we've written here will work, but there's going to be something really strange about it, okay? There's going to be something very strange. So it's going to work, but it's going to be strange. So let's run this, and then we'll talk about exactly what's so strange. Now, one thing I want to remind you about, when I saved the file, we made use of this rand package right here. So if you are using a code editor besides VS Code, remember to add in an import statement from mathrand up here. Okay, so we'll go back over to our main Go file. We're now going to, let's generate a new list of cards. So we'll say cards is new deck, and then we'll call it cards.shuffle, and then cards.print to print out all the cards inside of there. So we'll save the file. I don't see any errors, which means I think we're ready to test this out. So back inside the terminal, we'll run go run main go deck go. And okay, looking closely, it actually does appear that we've got some randomization here. So I see 2 ace 3, 2 ace 4, 3 3. Yeah, definitely looks like it's randomized. But I want to show you something that's kind of interesting. Take note of the 4 last items inside of here. We've got 2 of spades, 2 of clubs, 4 of clubs, 3 of diamonds. So we're going to run the program again. And you'll notice that the second time around, we still got 2 of spades, 2 of clubs, 4 of diamonds, 3 of diamonds. So 2 of spades, 2 clubs, 4 diamonds, 3 diamonds. So I don't think I have to tell you how incredibly unlikely it is for us to get the exact same randomization every single time we run this program. So I think it's safe to say that even though it looks like we have put our randomization stuff together correctly here to shuffle the array or shuffle the slice, it definitely looks like something is not quite working out correctly. So let's take a quick break. We'll come back to the next section and we'll figure out exactly why this shuffle function isn't quite working out the way we expect.